Build Your Business listeners. This is Matt Reynolds, your host for the podcast, and you are listening to what we are calling the legacy episodes. And really, these are the pre-episodes that really led to this podcast, the Build Your Business podcast. This is really my life's work and my brother's life's work in building your business. And so they were originally published in the Barbell Logic podcast as part of the Principles or Coaching Success series, but really touch on similar topics to the Build Your Business podcast: how to improve your productivity, how to set and accomplish your goals, deprioritize urgent tasks, to focus on what is most important to you, and most importantly, to become a better person and leader and business owner overall. I'm proud to bring you these podcasts. Again, many years of life's work, several years of podcasts, and several decades of business ownership. Hope you enjoy them and learn from them. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the Barbell Logic podcast, another episode of the Coaching Success series, always brought to you by Turnkey Coach, the premier online coaching turnkey system. You can visit that at turnkey.coach to find out more. Hey, I'm your host, Matt Reynolds. Happy Friday. It's been a great week for me. I'm excited. I'm home finally after 10 weeks on the road, back and forth. I'm home every week, but gone every week. So gone 4 or 5 days, home for 2-3 days. And I want to talk a little bit today. First off, I want to give a shout out to Nikki Sims. You've heard of her before. She's fantastic. And in talking about the book, Undoing Urgency, which, by the way, as you listen to this on Friday morning, the book has been submitted to Forbes in their final review stages. They're very happy with it. We have a couple weeks left of cleaning up the final illustrations. Ted, my illustrator from The Art of Manliness, has been fantastic, but also my graphic design team, Paige and Josh and the team, have just done such a great job of also doing some graphic design for us to lay out things like the game plan and things like that are a little harder to draw. And I was talking about how to make sure that we have a lot of clarity in this concept of moving from core values and basic tenets that drive your life or your business or your health into long-term goals that support those values, to short-term goals that support the long-term goals, to actions that support the short-term goals, to metrics that make sure you're moving the right direction all along the way, to the execution plan, which is that daily task list that occurs literally on a daily basis, and all that stuff. And so how do we visually represent this? And Nikki reached out yesterday and I was like, dude, this is so good. And she told me, this is like a road trip analogy. So this is really the game plan and really some of the things that are laid out in the book as a road trip analogy. And I'm actually going to use a specific road trip that my family took. So first off, thank you, Nikki Sims. This is stolen from her. I took what she wrote. I added to it. That's what we do, right? We don't actually create anything anymore. We repackage and figure out and make it work. And so, this is what's great about having the entirety of the world's knowledge in our pocket, in our cell phone. Probably also lots of detriment to that as well, because we do a lot of stupid stuff with that same phone. But I love it because we just have such incredible access to information. And so for those of you who have heard about the game plan and this stuff before, and if you're listening, you probably have, I just want to give you a little bit of a visual representation of what that might look like and why I think the road trip analogy is so great. And so every couple of years, my family takes a road trip. My immediate family, my wife and my 2 daughters, we take a road trip. And it's usually we go somewhere that's not easy to fly, right? So we don't just go to, if we were just going to go to one city and stay in a city or whatever, we would just fly there. And so a few years ago, we took a trip really through what ultimately we were trying to go to Telluride, Colorado. So my aunt and uncle have a beautiful ski lodge home in Telluride, Colorado. Please don't be confused. I don't ski. I don't snow ski. As a matter of fact, if you say ski in Missouri, we're talking about water skiing. I've done lots of that over the years. I probably won't ever do that again either, but I don't snow ski. But we love to go to Telluride in the fall or the spring. It's just beautiful. And it's like the Swiss Alps in the United States. It's absolutely fantastic. And so we will do this big road trip. And ultimately, we are not a family who tries to get to the final destination as quickly as we can. So we have some rules around our road trip. And one of those rules is that we never drive more than 5 hours in one day. And that's kind of like the pulling weeds from the book. It's the deprioritizing, as we've done podcasts in the past. We want to enjoy the stops along the way. It's not, again, still, I fly all the time and literally have flown every week for 8 or 10 weeks. I'm still amazed that I can be in Springfield, Missouri, and I get in an airplane and I land an hour later and I'm on the other side of the country and it's a completely different place. And that's really like just going straight to the destination. One of the things I love about a road trip is that you get to have a ton of fun along the way if you do it right. And I get it. If you're listening and you've got like littles, like babies, we have friends that do road trips and they drive through the middle of the night. They try to do it while their kids sleep. It's been a long time since Papa Reynolds has had to do that. My kids are old enough that we can enjoy the stops along the way. So if that's not you, you have to put yourself in that scenario. So a few years ago, we decided to go to Telluride, Colorado. That's the final destination. Aunt and uncle have a beautiful ski lodge home. It sits literally at 11,000 feet of elevation. Was going to meet my mom and dad. And of course, my dad has passed. It's been several years ago. As a matter of fact, it was the last great vacation we had with my parents, as well as my brother and his family and my sister and her family. And we're a close family. And we were going to stay there for, I think, 10 or 11 days in Telluride. But rather than making a 10 or 11 day trip, we made it like a 3-week trip. And we enjoyed the stops along the way. Right. And so again, Telluride is an amazing place. If you haven't heard of it, I mean, it's kind of in, I think, Southwest Colorado, kind of in Durango, Montrose, that kind of area. Not easy to fly into. As a matter of fact, I've heard Telluride's, I've never flown into Telluride, but I've seen the airport. It's got, I think, the shortest runway in the United States, at least a commercial level airport. You got to hit the brakes fast and you go off the end of the mountain. And so it's 1,200 miles away from Springfield, Missouri. It's a 17-hour drive in a straight shot. I don't want to do that. We didn't take the straight shot, and neither will you. So you'll start to see the analogy here in business and life and health. There are a million different paths that you can take to get to the final destination. And the final destination, and for us and this road trip, Telluride, was and is like the long-term objective in your company or your health or your life. Like, what is the ultimate goal for that month, for that 3 weeks? It was to get to Telluride and spend great time with the family. But the question is, what were the things that had to be done to get there, right? And so that final destination is like the long-term goal, the long-term objective in your company or your health or your life. So instead of driving for 17 straight hours through the night and all day long and showing up in Telluride totally exhausted and not being able to enjoy the first 3 days of the vacation as we try to catch up on sleep with no joy in the pursuit, as we've talked about in previous podcasts, we just made planned, super fun stops along the way. And so we stayed in Oklahoma City the first night. I love Oklahoma City, by the way. I think it's a very underrated Midwestern city. It's got great food, lots of fun stuff to do. When the NBA team and the Thunder came in years ago, they really revamped the downtown. It's got all kinds of like great hotels. We stayed at the 21C, and there's great restaurants. And there's like an old Ford motor factory, like where they built cars. They've turned into like a 4-story restaurant, like a really nice restaurant. I don't remember what it's called, but it's fantastic. They've got supper clubs there. It's like you walked into 1952 and Frank Sinatra's playing, and we just had a blast in Oklahoma City for the night, for the day, right? We went from Oklahoma City to Amarillo, and we stayed with great friends who live on a ranch, and we ate their beef. They made steak, some friends that were coaches in Amarillo, Texas, and saw is it the Cadillacs that are out there in the middle of nowhere that it's like the Cadillac Stonehenge I remember seeing. And so stopped along the way and then went to Albuquerque and visited the Solins. Of course, Nick is helping me write the book. Visited with his family, did like a trolley tour of Albuquerque, saw the Breaking Bad houses, ate phenomenal food. Some of literally the best, New Mexican food, whatever that is, the green chili, red chili, but it was like a more Mex than it was New Mex. tremendous place that we ate at and stayed at and enjoyed. And then went from Albuquerque and turned north and went to Flagstaff, beautiful little town. I'm probably wrong, but if I remember right, it's like at 7,000, 7,500 feet in elevation. Of course, Albuquerque is also at a fair amount of elevation as well. I think it's about 5,500 or something. Those of you in Albuquerque will correct me. I had never seen the Grand Canyon, you know? I don't even know if I had flown over it. And so after Flagstaff, we saw the Grand Canyon. And to this day, that is the most overwhelming natural beauty that I've ever seen in my entire life. For those of you who have been there, I'm trying to remember, I think we did the North Rim. I don't remember which one's better, which we researched it, South Rim, North Rim, whichever one's better. You pull into like a big national park. You can't really see it. You park it at the parking lot. You kind of go through the visitor center, and then like they send you out on a sidewalk. And within about, I don't know, 50 to 100 yards, the thing opens up and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea. You've seen pictures, but if you haven't seen the Grand Canyon, you have no concept. It gets the biggest thing you've ever seen. And it was a perfect day. And it was all these crazy colors. It was like purple and brown and orange. And it's just a rainbow of colors of seeing the Grand Canyon. That's only happened to me a few times. I mean, when I saw Niagara Falls from the Canada side, it was similar. I saw it. I was just like, oh, I didn't understand how incredible this thing is. And then we went from the Grand Canyon and we drove up to Moab, Utah and stayed there for a couple of days. We white water rafted. Moab's a great town for outdoor stuff. You hike and bike and do all this stuff. And we did all that stuff, like at every single stop along the way. And then Moab is just a few hours from Telluride, Colorado. By the way, amazing drive from Moab to Telluride. Terrifying drive. It's one of those drives that you're driving on the, way, way, way up, 10,000 feet in elevation. And you can like look over the side of the car and see like, if we drive off the side of the road, we drop to our death. So we made it to our final destination of Telluride, Colorado, to be with my family for nearly 2 weeks. And it was one of the best vacations we ever had. And of course, we had tons of fun stuff planned in Telluride. Again, if you don't know about Telluride, it's just this like insane, beautiful, small mountain town. It's interesting because it's full of celebrities. I mean, it's like Oprah has a house there and Jerry Seinfeld and Kelly Ripa. I mean, they're like neighbors with my aunt and uncle. And to be clear, remember, I'm a poor Baptist preacher's kid. I'm not used to driving into a $10 million home, with Kelly Ripa on one side and Jerry Seinfeld on the other. But the celebrities can go there and they're not celebrities. They're just like, just go eat at the pizza joint. Or they got a great ramen place called Wood Ear. That's like a whiskey bar and high-end ramen noodles. Like it was just a blast. Great parks, great hiking. As you can imagine, we did all sorts of hikes in Telluride. Telluride was the final destination, but the key there is that each of these cities and major stops along the way are like the monthly goals in the game plan. Each stop, each city reached, each goal achieved got us one step closer to our final destination. I didn't want to drive 17 hours on I-70 west through Kansas and Colorado. I apologize, Kansas and Colorado. By the way, Kansas is the ugliest state on the planet. It's nothing but fields, right? And Colorado is the exact same thing until you get to Denver. And when you get to Denver, if you haven't been there, like Denver's not really in the mountains. It's at the edge. You can see the mountains. And then as you go west, you very quickly hit the mountains. West of Denver is incredible. And so I didn't want to do that drive. There's nothing fun to do. It would have been Kansas City the first night. And then, I don't know, staying in nowhere. And so we made a great trip out of it. And so each of those cities that we worked through, that we had fun with, those were little individual goals. Like those were goals achieved that were like the monthly goals in a game plan that move you closer towards your long-term final destination. And in between these cities, with each day of driving, again, 5 hours max, we had pit stops and bathroom breaks and sightseeing and, get out and take pictures if you had a great place to take a picture. Ate at restaurants, clean and organize the car. You know me, I'm a super organized guy. I love order and control. And, obviously got gas, cleaned the windshield. We played and sang music at the top of our lungs as a family. Luckily, my daughters have adopted some of the music that Rachel and I loved. You kind of get stuck in like some of the music that was popular probably when you were in college or your early 20s. And our kids have picked up on that. And so we played, I won't name the music because I would be embarrassed. But we played music and we, belted out at the top of our lungs, just had a blast. Like those things that we did between the city stops were the actions that got us to the next goal. So again, coming back to the game plan. So each goal is a city with the final destination being the ultimate long-term goal, objective, whatever you want to call it. And so those actions between the cities, the gas stops, the cleaning the windshield, the cleaning and organizing the car. I didn't want a car that was covered in trash and had melted M&Ms in the seats. And again, I apologize to you for those of you who have littles. That's probably what it looks like. But even more granular than that, so we talk about the actions, even more granular than that was the execution plan that supported those actions. Like who's going to drive? Wife and I obviously trading off. We typically wouldn't let a 10-year-old drive. Are the kids' iPads charged? Do we have Kleenex? Do we have a trash can? Gallon Ziploc bag for Kinsley in case she gets car sick? You think that's a minor deal. You want vomit in the floorboard or do you want vomit in the gallon Ziploc bag? You're driving through the mountains. It's probably going to happen. And most importantly, snacks. What kind of snacks are we going to eat? And so that's the execution plan, right? Like that's how we execute the actions. And then again, so much of this, I just want to be clear, is taken from Nikki. I even think Nikki stole this one from Andrew, she told me, which makes perfect sense. Andrew, the engineer. When you look down at the dashboard as you drive, you see the compass or the direction you're traveling. And for us, it was west because I feel the weight. It's not about the road trip, guys. Sorry. So you look down and you see the compass or the direction you're traveling. And for us, that was west. And the compass is like the tenet or the core value of the trip. And those tenets or core values are also like the compass in your business and your health and your life. They tell you you're moving in the right direction. Additionally, for us on this trip specifically, we climbed from an elevation of about 500 feet of elevation, which is where Springfield is, to 11,000 feet. So we could also turn on the altimeter on the car. And it also served as a tenet to let us know we were going in the right direction, not just west, but up. And so while driving, you constantly keep an eye on the important gauges that keep you informed, like the amount of fuel you have, the speed you're at, the cruise control, the temperature gauge of the engine, the gas mileage, the oil level, the tire inflation, which changes. If you've ever gone up into the mountains, even like the octane of gas that you use changes dramatically. Those are the metrics that continue to inform us that we're doing the right thing, as well as inform us if something is broken and needs to be dealt with, right? If the check engine light comes on, if you puncture a tire, if you constantly checking the gauges, we're checking okay, is everything moving smooth? Is everything fine? That's the metrics that tell you okay, we're moving in the right direction. And of course, we always had the navigation app up, the Apple Maps or Google or Waze. I like Waze because Waze will tell you, when there's a car on the side of the road, when there's a cop coming up, when there's construction coming up, especially if you're on a busy interstate where other people are feeding into the algorithm, it'll let you know what's going on. And usually that navigation app is in a close-up view of the next mile or two. You can see what's coming up just down the road. But every hour or two, if you're like me, you usually zoom out and you look at the progress and the trip as a whole, so you never lose sight of the forest for the trees. Look, here's home, here's Springfield, here's Telluride. I know we're not taking a direct shot, but look, we're moving in the direction of the final destination. And so, of course, importantly, extremely importantly, is that the car is fueled. And just like our company values and resources that we have available for us, and the car is fueled as well, primarily in the company and in our life and our health and business by time, effort, and money. How much time do we have? How many miles are we going to go? How much effort is it going to take? Who's going to drive? Who's going to, sometimes my wife is driving and I'm hotspotting off my phone and I'm doing some work on the laptop in the passenger side. How much money is it going to take? Like, how much are we going to spend on the hotel rooms and the restaurants and the things like that? And this equates perfectly to business. And so when we think about that road trip as a whole, we understand that we as the driver can change routes. We didn't have to go that way. We could have gone a different way. We could have gone up north and gone around and seen other things, right? But instead we kind of went southwest and turned north and came up. Like, you can even change the exact final destination. Maybe the goal is to sell the business. Okay, maybe not. Maybe the goal is to make the business a cash cow. Maybe the goal of the business is to be a highly profitable in-person business. Maybe not. Maybe it's to be a highly profitable online business. Like, whatever those things are, like, the final destination can even change, but we are governed by the tenets, core values, and resources that we have. And so you have to have a map so that you don't waste your resources. And because you actually want to get where you're going. And so I'm so grateful to Nikki for sharing this concept of the road trip analogy to the game plan. We can make the comparison between ultimately what's the long-term objective goal, what's the final destination, what are the short-term goals we have to use to get there to support the long-term goal, what are the actions that need to be done on the road trip to get us to each short-term goal, each one moving us closer to the final destination. What are the major metrics that we need to keep an eye on to make sure we're moving in the right direction? Again, in a road trip, it's very simple because you're basically looking at the health of the car. Are you moving in the right direction? Are you on the map? Are you following the navigation guide? Or are you just going a different direction than what Siri is telling you to go? And the execution plan, like, what do we need to get there, to get from not just the start to the finish, but from point A to point B, and then from point B to point C and C and D, and so on and so forth. And those things, like, what do you have in the car? Do you have the snacks? Are you prepared? Do you have the stuff? It's such a great analogy for what we do in the business. I think a great analogy for what we do in life. I actually love the fact that we didn't take a straight shot to Telluride, because we know in life that typically achieving these long-term objectives or these long-term goals or the final destinations are almost never linear. They're ups and downs. Like, we didn't take the straight shot. We went kind of around we wanted to see the Grand Canyon. We wanted to go to Moab, Utah, and these places. But we knew we were still moving in the right direction because each goal got us closer to the final destination. We never moved further away. We always moved closer. And so, great analogy, the road trip analogy for the game plan and understanding how to lay this stuff out, not just in business or coaching, but in life and health. You'll go through these time periods in health and in life of times of struggle, times where the metrics say everything's not okay. We're redlining on a spot and you have to make a change. And it's not that you change the final destination, it's that you have to make effort. You've got to give effort or time or money. You've got to give those resources up in order to change the metric, to move the needle, to get back on the path, to get back in the direction of the final destination. And so that's how life works, right? And so we want to constantly get stronger every day and get leaner every day and improve nutrition every day and get better conditioned every day. And that's not reality. And so reality is the consistency of doing the work to get to the next goal, not the final destination. It's too far away. Like, it sets you up for failure. If I try to think about, like, okay, the ultimate goal for the business is this, or my life is this, it's like, what do I need to accomplish in the month of June? What do I need to accomplish in any of those things, right? That move me closer towards the goal, which might be 25 years away, or it might be a year away or 3 years away, or whatever the thing is. And so the road trip is a great example of that. I love road trips. For those of you who have really littles and you're not able to do it the way we did, I would just say, think about it. To me, this is the best way to take a road trip. Break it up. By the way, the freedom that you get from online coaching is that we can do this. Like, we can actually, we homeschool our kids. Rachel's a stay-at-home mom. I get to work as long as I have the internet and a laptop, I'm good to go. I didn't take total time off, right? Like, maybe I worked a little less because I was driving some, but I could online coach. I did from any city, on the interstate, hotspotting off the phone. I had the freedom to do that. I wasn't locked into a gym. I wasn't locked into a schedule. I wasn't locked into a location. And so, our vacations, what we knew as kids was often a long weekend. Memorial Day weekend is this weekend. Respectful Memorial Day weekend this weekend to all of you. Certainly, it's more important than just the barbecues that we'll have with our family. So I hope you consider the history and foundation of Memorial Day. But that was often the vacation. It's like the Friday to the Monday vacation, or at best, it was a week-long vacation. And we've been able to live the life of had the freedom to go, let's take a 3-week vacation. Because dad can still work off the laptop. He gets up early when everybody's sleeping in the hotel, goes down to the hotel lobby, drinks coffee, knocks out work. And let's get in the car at 7 a.m. and let's hit the road. Let's go have some fun. And so that's what we do. And we would try to hit the road early so we could get to the city, by lunchtime, because we're not going to drive more than 4 or 5 hours. And then we'd have all afternoon and all evening to spend, fun times in Oklahoma City or Albuquerque or Flagstaff or whatever it was. And I think enjoying the pursuit, not just the outcome. And by the way, the outcome was great. We got to Telluride and had one of the best vacations we've ever had in our life with my family. I mean, I would say it's the best vacation I ever had with my entire extended family, my brother and his family and sister and her family, my mom and dad. And so it was wonderful. The memories that I have today, and that's been probably 4 or 5 years ago now, the memories that I have are actually about the trip itself. It was the pursuit. And certainly I've got pictures and memories and wonderful memories of what we did in Telluride, because Telluride was awesome. But, it's the Grand Canyon. It's hanging out with the Solins and eating at this great restaurant in Albuquerque. It's going to Moab, Utah and doing whitewater rafting with our kiddos. It was all that stuff. Like, that's where it was at. It was the cool restaurants in Oklahoma City. It was like, that's the enjoying the pursuit on the trip, not just the outcome. That's why I'm not driving through the night, 17 hours straight shot to Telluride or anywhere I've got to go. And we've done this lots of times. I have 3 or 4 different examples. We did the same thing, went through the Smokies. And so just places where it's not easy to fly, we'll do that every couple of years, and we'll just make a big road trip out of it and have a blast. But man, there's a lot of carryover to the process of understanding your core values and tenets, your goals, your actions, your metrics, your execution plan for business, health, and life. And so there we go. Thank you, Nikki. That's the road trip analogy. This has been another episode of the Coaching Success Series. If you got value from this, as always, we'd love a 5-star review, especially on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Tell a friend or family member, someone who would enjoy this. Obviously helps us tremendously to pick up new listeners and bring them value as well. Andrew and Nikki have been knocking it out of the park lately on Tuesdays. Love listening to that. I mean, it's my favorite podcast. It's the Barbell Logic podcast. Listening to Nikki and Andrew on Tuesdays. I'm always excited about what they have to talk about. So same thing for them. Leave them a review. Leave me a review, preferably 5 stars, and say something nice, like actually type a few words. And I hope you guys have a great holiday weekend, and I'll see you guys next Friday.